Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks. We are also on Radio QDX in Lucama, North Carolina, and KCHF TV 11 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Welcome to the show. Good morning, everyone. We have a special guest with us today, an actor, a faith-based actor who has been cast in dozens of films, commercials, and TV series, including lead roles in ID Network's Lone Star Justice. Everybody knows about Lone Star Justice, no doubt about that. And a faith-based film called Honest to God, written and directed by Robert Alaniz. In 2020, he finished writing his first film script and is working toward making this story big screen ready. It was recently cast in the upcoming film Empty Nets from Kingdom Studios, directed by Nathan Blair. You may be familiar with Nathan, who has Fragment on PureFlix, 6-episode series I highly advise you to watch. This actor's credits his faith in God and an incredibly supportive family for his experiences so far. With no further ado, please welcome actor Burke Sage. What's up, Burke? How are you?
Hey, Maurice. So glad to be here. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you on the show. We met briefly at the International Christian Film Festival in Orlando, Florida last May. And this May coming up, they're going to have their 12th iteration that is produced and founded by Marty Jean-Louis, who also launched Bog Radio, where we are broadcasting right now. Marty's into a lot of things. That, I think, Burke, is like the Christian Oscars.
Yes, that was the exact feeling that I had, was that was kind of that cream of the crop. And it was a great experience. Really, really enjoyed it.
It was a lot of fun, and we met a lot of cool people there. I had a chance. I don't know if you ever had an opportunity to speak with Debbie Gerber or Andrew Jacob Brown, who produced Within the Walls. And Chris Kayalo, also a part of Within the Walls, and Piercing Wounds. And I had those guys on recently. There were so many actors there, though, in the industry. Right. Cameron Arnett, Kevin Sorbo, my gosh. You know, Jen Gotzon did not have an opportunity to show up this year. Usually she's there, but she was very busy having her second child. We understand that. We'll give her a pass on this one. Well, Burke, thank you so much for being on the show, man. Glad to have you on the show. Now, your start in acting was kind of interesting. You and I were part of a program. We didn't meet, but Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ. I had an opportunity to be a part of that program in 2016, and you also came through AMTC, but you have a very interesting story how you got there and beyond. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's I was there, I think the year prior. I was 2014 into 2015 when I went through that. And it's this whole path for me has been a God-directed path, because before AMTC, I had no desire to act. I that was never even on the forefront. I never dreamed of it. You know, you hear these people, ever since I was 6, I wanted to be an actor. Never the case. I was musically inclined. I played trumpet in school. I did pencil sketches, and so I had kind of that creative gifting, but that was never part of it. And we were driving down the highway, actually to church one day, and we saw a billboard, and it was the AMTC billboard about, the local, hey, come visit us and see if you want to be part of this and learn about the industry. And at the time I had a teenage son. He was about 16, nice looking guy. And we kind of said, Micah, you're a good looking dude. Maybe you could get into modeling or, something like that. So that was the initial thing when we saw that, was to say, hey, what do you think? And of course, teenager, that was the reaction that we got.
Yes.
But the turn was, my wife then kind of gives me a poke and leads at me, and she said, well, honey, you should, maybe you should think about doing something like that. You're pretty creative and talented. And the only way I can explain it was just like this little nudge from the Holy Spirit that was like, hey, maybe you should check this out and take a look at this. And
Yeah.
so we did. Yeah. And so my son and I actually both went. We went to the little local casting where they kind of described the program and those kinds of things. And I sang a song, and I did a cold read for a script, and they said both my son and I could go through. My son says, that's really not for me. I said, sure, let's give it a go. And so I operated out of the Chicago hub. And for me, it was great because having had no experience, it was a great experience for me to learn how the industry works. All the basics things about headshots and resumes, pitfalls of the industry, just a very well-rounded introduction to it. And it really kind of got me set on the right path getting out of it. I found a local agent not too long after I finished that, and just started doing local commercial work and print ads and those kinds of things. I was an extra on Chicago Fire. I wanted to get on a set. So I got to experience that big set, and it just kind of put a little bug in me. And I just continued to grow and develop. And now I've, like you've said, been in some films, and I have an amazing agent now that does a lot of the work for me, Gene Wenger over at Treasure Coast.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it's been quite a ride, and I'm just having a blast. And I've started writing too. That's kind of spun off, and I have a script that I've kind of completed, and it's got some roots in my own family story about having a son with autism. And so that's kind of the next wing of things for me. And so I'm hoping to bring that to the screen someday.
Well, I had an opportunity to be a part of the film Love Different in 2016, directed by Anthony Hackett, which came on the heels of my experience with AMTC in 2016. Matter of fact, as soon as I came through the program, it wasn't more than 2, maybe 3 months later, I had auditioned for Love Different and won the role.
That's awesome.
And it just right out of the gate, and it was a great experience. I had an opportunity to play with Jen Gotson in that film, as I mentioned earlier, and Tommy Ford from the TV show Martin from back in the day. Unfortunately, Tommy, who never had a job, the next door neighbor in Martin. And unfortunately, Tommy passed away in 2016. But what I was able to learn from him was just utterly amazing about acting, because his demeanor, what you see on TV, that's the same guy off
That's
camera.
him. Yeah.
It's just Tommy. He's just electric, and he was able to just give me so many pointers about acting and how to respond in different situations. And they actually threw an extra scene on me that I wasn't even prepared for.
There you go.
And he said, "Come on, dog, you got it, dog." I said,
"Okay."
Threw me right in the fire, but praise God, that was a very good film, and that can be seen on Amazon Prime and ChristianCinema.com. A very good film, and also Tubi. But we're talking, ladies and gentlemen, with actor Burke Sage on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks and Radio QDX out of Lucama, North Carolina. Burke, you go through, you're in the Chicago hub, you come out in 2015, and things start percolating for you a little bit. You were just recently cast in the upcoming film Empty Nets, as I mentioned during the introduction, a film that's from Kingdom Studios, directed by Nathan Blair, and I've had an opportunity to interview Nathan a couple of times, which begins production this month. Tell us about this project and how you won the role.
Sure. Yeah. And they're actually in production right now. It started this week. And I will be flying down there next Wednesday for my part. I had connected, like a lot of people in the industry, it starts with social media groups and other actors that maybe are represented by the same talent agency, and just you connect that way. And that's really how I got connected with Nathan and even some of the other actors that are in this production. It wasn't until I started going to some of these film festivals and conferences that I got to meet people face to face and really connect and engage and get to know them. They get to know me. The casting for this film was on social media. Of course, I submitted, and Gene, was there to work on my behalf as well. I think because of those interactions at the conferences, that really boosted my chances for the role. It's filming in Texas. I live in Michigan.
Okay.
They tend to look at local actors, so I think just having that relationship a little more connected really helped me. So I did my thing. I submitted, and they came back and just said, "We'd love to have you be playing the role of Seba, the angry Pharisee."
Okay.
Everybody needs to follow the law, and if you're not following the law, Seba's not happy.
And how did you become associated with Treasure Coast Talent, which is headed by Gene Selig Winger?
Yep. I connected with her from a referral. So somebody that had worked with her and known her just got us connected, and I had some information I sent to her. We had a phone conversation, and just we connected. We hit it off, and she said, "Sure, I'd love to represent you." So we put together all my information, and away we went.
And away you go. You gotta love it. And as I mentioned, you're a part of Empty Nets, and it's in production, as you mentioned.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, you're in this film with some pretty heavy hitters in faith-based acting. You're surrounded by Leland Clausen, who's a comedy buddy of mine.
Yeah, he's great.
Venus Monique, Todd Terry from the hit crime drama Vindication, Stephanie Parker, also a tremendous actress. Have you ever had the pleasure of meeting these actors prior to the project?
Yeah, it would have been at the conferences. So the ICFF, then Content, which was not terribly long ago down in the Weatherford area. Got to meet pretty much all of them and have great conversations with them kind of behind the scenes. And it was great. So I've known them on that side of it, but I'm looking forward to being on set and actually working with them.
Yes. And because that's how it is. You can be in a film with a lot of people, and sometimes you never even meet them.
Right.
And it happens all the time. But I just wanted to throw that out because Leland and those guys are good friends of mine, and they're tremendous actors. There's so much you can glean from them. But this film, Empty Nets, I'm very excited about it. Now, you say it's in production. Do you have any idea when? Just a guesstimation when everything will be said and done and available to the public?
Oh boy, do I act as the spokesperson for Nathan? I'm sure it'll be throughout the year. I mean, their production is going to run, during the winter. I can't imagine it would be any earlier than, maybe early next year. Maybe they're on a speed course. I doubt it though. I think they're going to take their time, and it's going to be hilarious. The script is unbelievably funny, and if the visual does any justice to what's been on paper, it's going to be a really, really successful, fun film.
Well, you've got Leland Clausen. And from what I can understand, it seems as though Leland is the lead in this film. So it's got to be hilarious.
It is going to be hilarious. Yes. Yeah. Really looking forward to it.
Leland is a tremendous stand-up comic, and he's also a very comedic actor. I don't know if you've ever seen Sleeper Agent.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Love that.
Gigi Orsillo about 2 or 3 years ago, which is really funny. He also did it with Mark Christopher Lawrence and comedian Matt Falk. And Christina Aguero. I'm not sure if she's an actress. She's not a comedian, but a very good actress. But anyway, good film. And I hope that he does a sequel to it, and it's on a higher scale level, because it's a low budget film, but it's hilarious.
Oh, it is.
Really funny.
Yeah. Oh, you bet.
But anyway, I digress. Great film, and Leland is one of the funniest characters you're going to see in the faith-based world and Christian comedy. As a matter of fact, I'm putting together a comedy tour, a Christian comedy tour called Comedy in the Kingdom, which will have Leland a part of, because I think the world out there, when they hear Christian comedian, they just turn you off. They don't even give you an opportunity.
Right. Yep.
And the reality is there are some slap your knee funny comedians in the Christian world.
Yep.
That will have you howling And
Right.
so God's put it on my heart to put this together, and
That's great.
just keep me a prayer on that.
Oh yeah.
Um, but now, do you think audiences actually? I don't want to ask you this one. How about this though? What is your view of faith-based filmmaking, Bert, in 2023? And what are some things you would like to see explored more in the faith-based genre?
That's a good question. Deep question. I had the feeling that this year, especially. Oops, sorry about that. Let me grab this thing and. Um, this year, I think, was to me a little bit of a transition. I'm starting to see a lot more quality projects,
Okay.
um, starting with the script. Great scripts, great projects with good storylines, and finally the quality of the production, the acting, everything is starting to take a step up. And I think you're going to see that continue to increase. Just the quality of the work that's being done. So when somebody says it's a faith-based film or a faith-based project, you won't have that, oh, well, because a lot of them, unfortunately didn't have budgets, and that impacts things. And so you've got a lot of people that have just incredible gifts and talents to
Yeah.
write, act, and to produce. I think we're finally starting to see some of that take hold and get some traction. And I think the next couple of years are going to be absolutely amazing for faith-based films. And I would love to see even a little more outside the family drama type. We tend to see a lot of it in
Yeah.
that kind of circle. But comedy, as you were just mentioning, I think there's a lot that can be done with the comedy, with action type shows. I mean, why can't somebody of faith put together an incredible action movie or
Yes.
great comedy or a sci-fi movie? You can plant seeds of faith in any environment. It doesn't have to just be a family drama.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, and I think that if you look at the faith-based world, I mean, look at the Kendrick brothers, for example.
right.
I mean, they've got a film coming out this summer called The Forge with
Mhm.
Cameron Arnett.
Yeah.
And the one thing I love about the Kendrick brothers is they can take a project where you probably maybe it was close to $1 million and make it look like 15, or
Right.
they can make a $15 million project look like 100.
Right.
They get the most out of everything they do, and the
Yeah.
content is it's tremendously well done.
Right. Yep.
And so that's one that the Irwin brothers,
Mhm.
you mentioned Nathan Blair. There's the faith-based film. I think it was Family Camp last summer.
Yep. Love that.
And that was with Gigi was in that
Yep.
film as well. I'm forgetting the name, and I interviewed him. I can't remember the director's name, but that was a hit. That was a faith-based summer
Right.
hit, and it was a comedy.
Right. Yep.
And it was kind of like the Great Outdoors. It was the faith in a way. It
Yeah.
was a
Yeah. Right.
faith-based
Yeah.
version of the Great Outdoors.
Yeah.
And there's just so much you can do in the Christian community, in Christian filmmaking, that we're not doing enough of, or we're just not doing it all.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to see it explored more. Melissa Ray Goad did a basically horror film about 2 years ago. She won an award at ICFF, but it wasn't a horror
Right.
film. It was the reality of spiritual warfare.
Right.
And she chose to go down that road and just kind of like show you what's happening in the spirit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that Hollywood's more willing to get into that than Christians are.
Sure.
And Hollywood's got it wrong. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity for us to come in and tell the realities of what's
Sure.
happening. Yeah. And by the way, there's hope.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yep.
And so I'd like to see some thrillers. I'd like to see the type of film I'd like to see some action films.
Sure. Yeah.
In the faith-based world.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think why do we go to movies? Why do we go see movies? we
Yes.
don't necessarily go because we want to hear a message per se. We want a good story. We want a good
Right.
storyline. We want to find something that draws us in. We want to find something that touches us in, in the reality of our lives and those kinds of things.
Yes.
You can do that any number of ways. So if we can continue to put together good projects in various genres, you can plant all sorts of seeds of faith and present those realities of faith and things in that, and reach more people.
I saw some films at the most recent ICFF. I didn't get a chance to see them all. I wish I could have seen more than I did, but a couple of them were really cutting edge.
Yeah.
And they're yet to be released. A couple of them are probably going to be released maybe later this year.
Yeah.
But cutting edge, a different format. Just to piggyback on what you were saying before, I think we've got some special films coming down the road in faith-based filmmaking. I'm really excited about it. I think we're getting into some new territories, and it's fresh, and it's going to bring in more audiences of the secular background. Because at the end of the day, I mean, as you mentioned, Burke, I mean, I think people that need to get saved don't want to see a cookie cutter Christian film.
Right.
Right. And
100%.
Hey, don't get me wrong. There's a place for it. I mean, especially on Pure Flix, I've got no problem watching them, but there are people out there that, they need to see something that's going to want to make them reach out for God.
Right.
And it has to be a certain level of realism that goes along with that, of course, without crossing any lines. So that's a good answer to that question, Burke. And as I ask you that, do you think audiences are being drawn more to faith-based films in today's movie industry?
I see two legs to that, because you have believers that are looking for options, obviously, because some of the things that are coming out of Hollywood, I'm not recommending, those types of things. So we want to see something that's got quality content. But then there's also the side where, okay, now we've got the unbelieving side. We want to put together something to pull them into. So there's kind of two different lanes with that. But I think people are searching these days. These last few years have really thrown people's mental and emotional, status in an uproar. And I think people are looking for things to settle on, to provide comfort or answers, those kinds of things. And I think they're looking for that. And if we can offer them something that answers those questions or provides that, whatever that answer to whatever they're searching for, that's what I think people are looking for. So I don't know if it's necessarily the faith-based per se, but they're looking for answers to what's going on with this mess and with my own personal life. Faith-based, those have the answers. So I think that's just going to be the package that's delivered in that search.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. You really think about faith-based programming being more cutting edge. There's a great crime drama out there called Vindication. I don't know if you've ever watched Vindication.
Oh yeah, we're junkies.
That is a show that's clearly Christian, but it's not afraid to address hard topics.
Yep. And it's done well. Good storylines, good character storylines, great stuff.
It's done very well. Creator Jared O'Flaherty knows how to get right up to that line without crossing it.
Right.
And I think we have to be willing in the faith-based world to kind of get up to that line a little bit as far as, okay, this is happening. This is really going on. But it takes a gentleman to tell that story. And that's what Jared O'Flaherty is. Yeah. And I think the world is going to appreciate that show down the road. I could see that show getting on a platform like Hulu.
Oh, I agree.
Down the road.
Mm-hmm. It's gotten better and better every season.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks, talking with actor Burke Sage. You were in a film, Burke, called Honest to God. Tell us about that film.
That was another one of these God stories. So I had submitted for a film, and it's Robert Alaniz. He had written other films. I had submitted for a different film a few years prior to Honest to God,
Okay.
and didn't go anywhere. But I was trying to connect into different markets. He was from the Chicago area,
Okay.
and I'm in Michigan. And when this casting came, I again submitted and just had a little note that just said, "Hey, I submitted for a previous film. Would love to be considered." And anyway, long and short of it, I actually landed a very small role in the film, one of the
Okay.
smallest, just a small day player role, and I was happy. Great,
Yeah.
I've expanded my tent spikes a little bit here, and making
Yeah.
some new friends. And then COVID hit. A lot of things changed, production sites, and it was a big mess. And the actor that was originally cast as the lead in this film was not able to commit to the schedule.
Okay.
And Robert called me one day and just said, "I know you've already been cast, but you and I seem to connect, and communicated real well and enjoyed our conversations. Would you be interested in maybe reading for this role?" And of course, my jaw fell on the floor, and then I pulled it back up, and I said, "Sure, let's do it." And so several Zoom read throughs and those types of things, reading with some of the other lead characters, and he said, "Well, I'm happy to have you on. If you think you can commit to the role, we'd love to have you on board." So I went from, I don't want to say the bottom of the ladder because every role is important, but I went from one of the smallest roles to the lead role in a
Wow.
hurry. So it was kind of one of those Joseph stories. Pull them up quick.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
got something to do. So that was great. And it was a comedy, kind of a dramedy. There was a lot of drama in it, but there was a lot of comedic elements in it too. And that for me was a great experience because it really tested my emotional range. Just with that lead, that's a lot of dialogue. You're spending a lot of time on set interacting with different actors.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a great stretching exercise. But I think it turned out really well, and Robert was pleased with my performance. So
Now, how can audiences see that film?
that's also available on Prime.
Okay.
You can see that just about any time. It's even on YouTube. It's on a number of streaming channels. So yeah, that was an exciting experience, and you'll get a few laughs. There's some real funny elements to it too.
Well, it's all about being in the right place at the right time in this industry, Burke. And the number one thing you as the performer has to have is a relentless approach. Like, I'm going to audition for as many jobs as I can, no matter how many no's I may get. And then all of a sudden something weird happens. You happen to look like the director's cousin, or what happened with you. You happen to be available when the guy they originally wanted was not.
Right. Yep.
There's so many things that just can bounce your way if you just keep moving forward.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Can't let those no's slow you down. You just got to keep pushing and not take it personal.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes you could just kill an audition. Just wasn't the right fit for a look for whatever reason. So I've been on both sides of those. I think I did tremendous, got great feedback on an audition, didn't get cast. Had other auditions, I would said, I did okay. And it was, they cast me. So there's not really a rhyme or reason. You just do your work, you do your part, do your best, and you let it go.
You let it go, you show up and you let it go. I can't tell you how many actor friends of mine have told me, including myself, that I nailed that thing. I mean, I'm going to win this, and nothing, and it's time and time again where you feel like that your best role. I had one actor friend tell me that he didn't think he did very well at all, and he won a role.
That's just proof that you just do your part and let it be. Yeah.
Do your part, let it be. There's so many factors in this business of acting. The bottom line is you have to love doing what you're doing.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I am primarily a stand-up comedian, and you have to love doing that, because nights are not going to be good. You're not going to have a good night every night.
Yep.
And when you start out, you're going to have more bad ones than good ones, and then it starts to even out, and you start having more good than bad. But the whole process is about enjoying the ride.
Yep.
Like,
Exactly.
I love this.
Exactly.
And so I love hearing your story, and it can help a lot of people out there, Burke. I mean, you were in the right place at the right time. You were willing, as you accurately stated, to show up. You were also a part of ID Network's Lone Star Justice. Tell us about that.
That was a real fun one. That was my first episodic TV network type of a show,
Okay.
and that was a national casting that
Okay.
went out all over. So I'm very thankful and honored to have been part of that. It was a show where they did crime reenactment. So it was you had the actors that were portraying different scenes and kind of walking out the crime and in the kind of the background and all of that, and then they interspersed some interviews with the actual character, the people involved in the cases and whatnot. So I played Detective Joe Rasco, and we filmed some things that were it was hard to believe that these were actual cases, cold cases that went unsolved, and these things really happened, and we were kind of reenacting these. Very, very bizarre things, but very fun. Great cast, great crew. That was probably the biggest production that I had been on, in terms of cast, crew, and everything. There was always a load of people in the background watching and attending to things, so that was great.
Yeah.
I mean, that was another one where you had to be prepared. I mean, we filmed as if we were filming a Chicago PD or a Blue Bloods episode.
So
there was a lot, and then they just had to kind of parse it out and put some other pieces in. But that was probably one of the most fun groups that I've been able to work with, and just a really great experience to be part of that.
I had not watched Lone Star Justice until I was doing a read over of your background, and I happened to check out a couple of scenes of Lone Star Justice, and what I saw, one of the episodes, and I don't know if this is like an ongoing subject matter that they have on the show, but there was the sheriff, and Lone Star Justice is about Texas justice, basically.
Yes. Yep.
And one of the sheriffs was arresting illegal immigrants, and it wasn't about whether or not, because his reasoning was that the U.S. government wasn't doing their job, so they're going to do the government's job for them, and then answer the questions later as to whether or not they're doing the right thing. But in the meantime, I'm going to round up as many illegal immigrants as I can. And so I didn't know if you had any part in those type of episodes or not.
No, I had a lot of them that were a lot of cold case type of things, these really challenging cases that really had bizarre twists and turns, kind of the whodunit types of stories.
Yeah, sure.
Which was fun. Again, we were filming all over kind of the Dallas area, and then, some of the suburbs, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, sometimes at night, and almost stepped on a copperhead one time. So yeah, it was a little exciting at times.
Hey man, we're in Texas, dude. I mean, I'm in Austin, Texas. I reside in Austin, Texas, and I tell you, there's some reptiles and amphibians around here, dude. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, luckily it was cold out, so it was kind of mellow, so I didn't disturb it. It was I think in February when we were filming some of that. So
yes, sir. I got you. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio in association with 24 Flicks, also courtesy of KCHF TV 11 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're talking with actor Burke Sage. And Burke, I wanted to ask you, as an actor, as long as you've been involved, and I think we would safely say more or less 2015 is kind of when you was your maiden voyage into this whole field and realm. And you've clearly been in some projects. What's been the biggest thing for you, Burke, that you've learned, whether it's been talking with other actors or maybe a mentor or two, an experience on set that you went through? Just all kind of things happen when you're in this business. What's the biggest thing that you've learned in acting that's made you better at the craft?
I think for me and a lot of beginning actors, we start up here.
Yeah.
Everything's about, I got to memorize the line and, where do I move? It's very cerebral. You're in your head quite a bit. And I
Yeah.
think over time you have to learn, and you do this by taking classes and just training and talking with people and just practicing, to get it out of your head and have it kind of play that bouncing game kind of in between. Because we as human beings, we use our heads, but we have our hearts, our emotions.
Yeah.
For me, it was finding that ability to get into the moment and just be there, be real, and have the thinking part going, but letting the emotions and the reality of who I am as a person kind of handhold, handshake in that process. And once I was able to do that and be present and listening, to another person, not just waiting for them to stop talking so I could say what I had to do and, okay, I'm done now, you go. Once you can be real and be present, that for me is what changed a whole lot. And you just get more comfortable in the scenes with people.
I was watching The Last Dance, which chronicles the Chicago Bulls' last championship run, and basically everything that they had done up to that point. But I remember one of the reporters talking about Michael Jordan being able to pull off something that most people in life try to accomplish. And
Right.
and you just stated it, and that is being present in the moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
it's not something that comes easily.
Right.
And everyone wants to get there. How can I be present? How can I just be whoever it is that I am, just be that,
Right.
And as an actor, it's more of an onus on you because you have to be in that moment. It's not about, trying to make it in everyday life.
Yeah.
You're on screen, and when they say roll them, you got to
Right.
be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that's prep, for me too, just being prepared. When I go on a set, I'm more comfortable when the material, the dialogue is there. That's great. I know my character. For me also, I find that I do better, and I'm more comfortable on set and things flow better when I've connected with people on the crew and other cast members.
Okay.
For me to go into a set where I don't know anybody and I've had 2 minutes to say hello to the person I'm, in the scene with, that for me is a little bit more of a challenge. But what if I've connected and maybe visited with them for a little bit and talked, for me anyways, it just changes the environment. And I feel like I'm with friends or family. The anxiety drops, and I'm like, oh, I'm with friends. Here we are. We're doing this together. There's not that, ooh, I've got these strangers watching me type of a thing.
I saw Bill Murray in an interview once, who happens to be one of my favorite comedic actors of all time. Bill Murray said that when he was doing Caddyshack, I think it was Caddyshack, and it may have been the same with Stripes as well. He was saying that, I'm sure it was, and Ghostbusters as well, but he said that he was really trying to make the cameraman laugh. And he got into this synergy with the cameraman. So every scene you see him in, he's just cracking the cameraman up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of like eliminates all the other outside forces.
Right.
Which I kept that in my memory bank, for, maybe the next film that I'm in, to be able to do that. It's like, man, it's something as simple as you said, getting to know people on your crew, getting to know the cameraman. This has got to be a situation or a scene where everybody's kind of cool with each other.
Right. Yep.
And you're going to perform a whole lot better.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You get these actors that, and I don't know who they are, and I have never met them. I've certainly heard the stories, but there's some that just think that they're above everyone on the set. I'm here to make my millions and do my takes, and I'm gone.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously they're able to do pretty darn good at it.
Right.
But,
yeah. They do. They do.
They're really good at it. But
yeah.
There's something to be said for those that can connect with everybody, because people are going to remember that guy as opposed to the one that thought he was better than everyone on set.
Right. Right. That's how you continue to do well in the industry, is when you do right by other people. You come and you do your job. You do it with excellence. You relate to people. For some people, that's not natural, which is strange to me. But to me, it just seems like, you know what, if you want to be successful, let's make everybody successful.
Yes.
Let's connect and walk together through this. For me, it's played out that way. Who wants to work with somebody that's, kind of cold shouldering you all the time, or
Yeah,
standing
sure.
above, that kind of thing? I wouldn't. I'll do my job, but I'll be glad when I'm done.
Yes, you'll
You
be
know,
glad when you're done, Bert,
and
for
they'll
sure.
probably be glad too. So that's just for me. I don't promote myself a ton. Sure, I've got social media and all those kinds of things, but for
Yeah.
me, I want to be known when somebody says, "Yeah, I worked with Burke. He was great to work with. He was prepared. He did a great job. We loved having him." Great. That just means I'll be open. I'll be welcomed with open arms to something down the road if it comes. So for me, it's just do right. Do right by people. Be prepared. Do your job. The rest will follow.
Burke, how do you deal with nerves and butterflies before you do a scene?
It's funny that you asked that. For me, I often get more nervous before auditions.
Okay.
Once I land a role, for me, I don't experience that quite as much, and I'm not sure exactly why.
Okay.
But part of it, from what I mentioned earlier about talking with people and getting to know people on set. So when I go to set, I know what I've done. I've prepared. I'm ready in that respect.
Right.
But for me, the jitters and the nerves, the more I can connect with people and be able to just
Yeah.
be able to relate to people, the lower that anxiety level becomes. So
Yes.
if I've
Yes.
connected, so that's why I'm really excited about Empty Nets, because I've had the chance to connect and laugh and go out to have dinner with a lot of these people that are in this film.
Right.
So
Right.
for me, it's going to be like coming to familiar faces. The anxiety level is going to be much, much lower.
I had a chance to interview Todd Terry of Vindication recently, who plays the role of Detective Gary Travis. And he told me that, and Todd's been in a lot of films, and he said pretty much the same thing, that, when I go into a set, I don't know anyone, that the nerves kind of kick in because you're not familiar with anyone. And then all of a sudden, when you start getting into, all of a sudden, when it just goes away.
Right.
And you start, developing rapports with people and all that type of thing. And, you're golden. But, it's part of the business. I mean, as a stand-up comedian, we deal with that all the time. It gets to the point where, all of a sudden you're on stage and it's like, nervous or not, it's go time.
You have to go, right.
And you have to let it rip. But it's part of the industry, and everybody has a different way and a method of doing it.
Sure.
And I was at a comedy show once, very, very famous comedian, very funny, but he didn't want anyone in his radius. Like, you couldn't like the COVID 6 foot thing. He was doing that before the 6 foot COVID thing. It's like, just stay away from it. I mean, he didn't even have to say it. You could see it. It was on him. You couldn't get near it.
It was his preparation bubble.
Yeah, that was his preparation bubble. And he would go on stage and do very, very well. Yeah. Everyone has a different style.
Right.
And I love hearing everyone's different approaches to it. You know what I mean? Right. I find them intriguing. Yeah. So have you ever participated, Burke, in a theatrical performance since AMTC in 2015?
As far as like theater type productions, I have not. And it's funny because I mentioned way at the beginning that I really hadn't had any desires to be in, film or theater. When I was in junior high, I did a theatrical production. I was Bob Cratchit in the Christmas Carol.
Okay.
Story. And then when I was in college, this is my pre-Jesus days. I was in a fraternity, and we did an annual song fest. So it was a choreographed song and dance production that we did in front of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Those are the only two things that would be even remotely close. Other than that, never had any interest in it.
Wow, that is quite amazing. That is quite amazing, because I think you're on your way in acting.
Well, I appreciate it.
I really do. I mean, in the faith-based world, here you come. Here comes Burke Sage.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's really impressive.
That's him opening doors, and I'm just trying to follow.
God is opening doors for you, Burke. Keep following, man. I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So, advice for young people out there that want to get into acting, and particularly the Christian actor or actress. Like I said, they're young and they're thinking,
Right.
"This is what I want to do, and I only want to do it for the Lord."
Right.
What kind of advice can you leave with them, Burke?
Well, first and foremost is just be in prayer about it, and as you should about anything. I mean, if this is something you feel like is on your heart, be in prayer about that. Check your motives. I think that's a big one. The why. Why do you want to do it? Because even if it's for faith based, you want to do it for the Lord. You have to be careful. Is there some underlying I want to be a big star
Yeah,
motive in there? You just have to watch that because that can kind of taint your efforts. So that's a big part of it. Set boundaries. Know what you will and will not do, and stick with it. I've had that where I will not do certain things, and I've lost roles. They just say, "I'm sorry, we'd love to have you, but we need X, Y, and Z in there."
yeah, sure, 100%.
So you pay that price, but long term you reap a whole lot better reward for sticking to your guns. So that's going to be a
Yeah,
big part. Make sure you know your boundaries, what you will and won't do. Pray about it. Network. Find places to connect with people, whether it's on social media groups. Those, if you can afford it, go to conferences. Just getting engaged with the industry, take classes, learn from people, even test the waters like I did. Before I even went to AMTC, I was looking for films to just be an extra on. Maybe
yeah,
there's student films somewhere that you can try to connect and see how it works. So that but again, connect with the right people. Find the right people to connect with. There's a lot of people of faith with different groups that would be happy to to mentor and give some pointers too.
I like what you said there about sticking to your guns. I
Yeah.
had an opportunity to audition for a Hulu
Okay.
episodic, which involved James Brown, and I got offered to do the role of James Brown.
Really? Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and so, but there was profanity involved,
Yeah.
which I just went, man.
Yep.
What's the point in auditioning for this? So what I did was I just changed the wording,
Sure.
which
Yep.
which directors can't stand.
Right.
A lot of directors hate it if you don't read it verbatim.
Do it as it. Yep.
You're going to have a big problem, and
Right.
I'm sure they went through the roof and immediately moved on to the next guy. And I poured myself into that role. My son told me, said, Dad, your throat's going to be sore for a while, dude, because I was going all in. I did
Oh,
several
yeah.
takes.
Yeah.
I did several takes of it just to make sure I had it right and all that.
Right.
But yeah, I changed the words out. I did everything. My thinking, Burke, was if the role is done well enough, they may just not care and say, we're going to go with this guy. And I've heard other stories from
Oh, yeah.
actors where they've made, adjustments here, there,
Yep.
whatever, and their performance superseded the script.
Right. Yep.
And so, and that can go along with your advice to young actors out there. One thing I really like too, when you're young, and this happens in comedy as well, young people think they're going to be successful immediately.
Right.
And they're going to be on TV and they're going to, be making all this big time money.
Yeah.
They really think this.
Yeah. They have big dreams and big aspirations. Yep.
And you and I both know that nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
It just ain't like that.
Right. That is the very small exception to the rule. Yeah.
It's a very small exception to the rule. And a lot of times, if it does happen, it happens too fast because that person, you don't see them again.
Right.
It didn't happen in every case. I like what you said, though. It doesn't happen to a lot of people. And so don't count on that.
Right. Yep.
And I think that, and look, Burke, I'm going to tell you the honest truth. I went through AMTC. I started doing stand-up, dedicatedly in 2013. And I was thinking the same thing. Of course, I'm in my 40s by that time, but I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna nail this. I'm gonna be on this. I'm gonna be on that. And then after you do it for about a year, you go, oh no, that ain't gonna happen.
Path is a little rockier than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that way, you know. And then you see a lot of the guys in the same sort. Everybody's kind of in that same situation or boat where, you know, the needle's not really moving. And it's not because you're not good. There's so many good guys out there to choose from.
Right.
And you kind of have to earn your way. You have to wait your turn, as they say. And go back to, you know, what happened to you, being in the right place at the right time. Something out of nowhere can fall right in your lap because you were there.
Right. Yep.
Or like I said, you look like the director's, you know, third cousin, and you get the job, and the next thing you know, you're in A-list film. Anyway, that being said, great advice, Burke. Great advice. How can fans follow you on social media or by website?
Yeah, I've got kind of your standard social media. I'm in Instagram, Facebook, just under my name, Burke Sage. If you just look up that name, you'll find me. I'm on Twitter. I don't do a whole lot with Twitter, but usually Instagram and Facebook. Also, I mean, if you want to see IMDb, I have my own page and listing on the IMDb page as well. Just again, you can go to IMDb and search my name, Burke Sage, and voila, there I am. See all kinds of great photos and videos.
I love it. I love it. Burke Sage on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show on Bog Radio. And ladies and gentlemen, you can see Burke in an upcoming film. We don't know when. It's done by Nathan Blair of Kingdom Studios, called Empty Nets, which stars comedian Leland Clausen, which you've seen Leland on the Maurice Brown Show many times, and also Venus Monique, Todd Terry in this film, who are part of the hit crime drama Vindication. And Stephanie Parker also. That this film, can't wait. It's a comedy by Leland Clausen, and so you can count on the big funny coming in this one. I can't wait until that comes out. And also you can see Burke in Honest to God. And again, what platform can that film be seen on?
It's on YouTube, but it's also on Amazon Prime.
And Amazon Prime. I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming in late and you're like, man, I missed it. I missed Burke. No, you didn't miss Burke, because you can listen to this interview in its entirety on Spotify, as well as watching it on Saturdays at 8 p.m. on KCHF-TV 11 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on Radio QDX out of Lucama, North Carolina. If you're coming in late this morning to Bog Radio and you're like, oh man, I missed Burke. Nah, you didn't really. There are going to be other opportunities, and I'll keep you informed on that as to how you can see Burke Sage on the Maurice Brown Comedy Show. Burke, it has been great chopping it up with you and talking shop in the acting world. And man, hopefully one day you and I can work together. I have a feeling that's got something in my guts telling me it's going to happen, and I
don't doubt that one bit. I don't doubt that one bit.
Are you planning on being at the International Christian Film Festival this May?
Verdict's not quite in yet. I'm not sure. I've been kind of picking which ones I want to go to. I might, but I haven't decided yet.
Well, hopefully I will see you there. I will definitely be there this May in Orlando, Florida, for the 12th iteration of the International Christian Film Festival, founded by Marty Jean-Louis, as well as Bog Radio, founded by Marty Jean-Louis. Once again, Burke Sage, thank you so much for being on the show, and may the peace of Christ continue, sir, to be with you and your family. God bless you.
Thank you, my friend. You too. Blessings. See ya.